Hello everybody, recently this company called Mucar reached out and asked if I wanted to test out their CDE900 scan tool and make a video on it. And I was looking at this thing and it looks pretty interesting, especially for its price point. Right now on eBay, it's about $40 to $50, which is fairly cheap. However, the price could always change. And full disclosure guys, they did send me this for free. However, other than the free product, they're not paying me to make this video. But like always, I'm going to keep it real with you guys and let you know what I like and don't like. And if it's complete junk, I'm going to tell you. If it's really good, I'm also going to tell you. In the box, we have a USB to USB-C cable. This is to charge the device, and you can also connect it to your computer. And we also have the device with the OBD connector that is permanently attached to it. And that is pretty much all that's in the box. And it doesn't come with any paper instructions, and all the instructions can be found in the device itself. And this is just fine with me because I usually end up throwing out paper instructions because they just get in the way. It also comes with a screen protector, and it's just got a little protective coating that you peel off. On the bottom, there's a little cover that houses the USB-C port and an SD card slot. However, it does not come with an SD card. I'll go ahead and plug in the charging cable, and I don't see any indicator LED lights, but it did power on when I plugged it in, and it finally came up with this start screen. And we'll hit next. Kind of just tells you about it, and I just realized that it is a touchscreen and it has Android, which is pretty cool at this price point. We gotta connect to Wi-Fi so we can update the software. And interesting. Guess you can pull down for a screenshot, screen recording, and Wi-Fi. We'll go ahead and connect to Wi-Fi so we can update it. Go ahead and turn it on. It came up with the keyboard, and I just entered my password. Definitely glad this thing is touchscreen. Yeah, that is interesting how they have like actual buttons. I'm not sure exactly why. We'll go back, and it comes up with the upgrade prompts. Go ahead and hit upgrade. Probably takes some time to download. Our internet here is really slow because we have DSL. It looks like it finished updating. Took about like 5 to 10 minutes or so. It's already got English selected, so hit next. And here we are at the main menu. Got the battery level and the Wi-Fi up there in the top right corner. Before we plug it into the vehicle, I will say that it is a little bit misleading when you buy this, because it says it does, you know, ECM, SRS, TCM, ABS, but if you click on this, you actually have to pay $40. And on the website description, it says it's per year, but if you go to buy and get all the info, it says right here that is free forever after purchase. And basically this unit will do everything OBD, which is kind of a federal emissions like standard. It'll do all of your basic like check engine light stuff, but with this you can do a lot more stuff like the ECM, which is engine control module. A lot of times manufacturers will have a lot more information in the ECM than will just show up on OBD2, and you can do a lot more stuff usually. And it has SRS, which is your airbag stuff. So if you have to erase an airbag fault, like I did with my BMW when I took a door panel off and I had to turn the car on, it said an airbag light. So it makes it super easy to erase those codes, so you don't have to like take it to the dealer or something like that. And then it has ABS, like if you have a ABS or traction control light, you'll be able to get more information on that, like what codes are present in like your wheel speed, sensors and all that good stuff. So it does seem a little bit misleading. However, it does say that you have to pay extra in the description if you read further down in the eBay listing. But I mean, this device is only like $53, and I have an Autel device that does all of this exact same stuff, and it comes with it all prepackaged, and you don't have to pay extra, and it was $170. So 40 plus like 53 is $93. It's still a pretty good deal. Plus, you can buy this if you just need OBD2 at first, and then once you need one of these extra features, you can just buy it when you need it. So that way you don't have to pay as much up front. But it just goes through on how to pay for it and what you get and everything. So once you pay for the expanded features, you go here, it says purchased, and it's got specific instructions on how to use it. It's even got tutorial videos, which is pretty cool. And before we get started, we can go ahead, go to update, and I've already started it, but this just updates each specific brand data, and you can see it's got pretty much all of the brands it needs to update. It's going to take a while, so we'll come back in a bit. All right, so it did all update, and I left it overnight, and in the morning there's like 14 of them, and it I guess it had an error. I don't know if it went to sleep or something like that, but I just restarted it and it all updated, so we're good there. As far as the power goes, it's kind of similar to a phone. It's got a power button on the side, and you click it and it goes to sleep, and you just click it and it comes back. And I think hold it down and you can reboot or power off. And I tested how long the battery would last just in sleep mode, and it seems to lose about 10% within 24 hours. So if you're not going to use it in a while, you definitely want to power it off. Okay guys, so now we can go ahead and test this out, and I can show you all the functions of this scan tool on a couple of my vehicles. And unfortunately, right now, my vehicles aren't experiencing any issues. I kind of wish they were so I could do a diagnostic video, but went ahead and made a fault on my BMW and on my 4Runner. Also, one thing I will mention is that this scan tool, and pretty much any scan tool, even like a really expensive one that costs like thousands of dollars, isn't going to tell you exactly what part to replace in your vehicle. It'll basically just report a problem that the vehicle finds. However, it would be our responsibility to figure out what the cause of the problem is. And that's a little bit more in depth, and I'm not going to go into like actual diagnostics in this video. However, there's a lot of good videos and channels out there that cover like scan tool diagnostics and stuff like that, like Schrodinger's box and Scanner Danner, if you're interested. And if you want to become really good at fixing cars, I would definitely suggest checking out some of those channels and learning all about like fuel trims, like the evap system. It also helps a lot if you actually learn the theory behind cars and the computers and everything. That will really help you out. I personally haven't always been the best at diagnosing cars, but I have ran into some issues that really made me think and actually learn how to diagnose cars properly instead of just guessing and replacing parts. It's definitely a learning process and something that could even take a lifetime to learn, especially because cars are always changing and everything. But anyways, let's go ahead and plug it in. Also, not always necessary, but if you're going to be doing a lot of key on, engine off kind of stuff, like reading codes, it's not a bad idea to put a charger on your battery so you don't deplete it. But it has a 12 volt 6 amp supply feature that will keep your battery good while you're doing diagnostic stuff with the key on. And I highly recommend this charger. It also tests your battery, connect to an app. I have another video on this, but go ahead and plug in the data link connector. And on OBD2, it should almost always be under the driver's side dashboard. There's like a few like Volkswagens and stuff that thought they were funny and put it somewhere else. Also, on another note, this is OBD2, so it probably won't work on vehicles before 96. I got lucky with that van, and it's a 96 with OBD2, so I was able to use a scan tool like this. But it gave us an instruction to turn on the key. Looks like the OBD2 is not downloaded, or the version is too low. So it looks like we have to upgrade the OBD2 software as well. So go ahead and hit update, and I think we're too far from the house network to connect. However, I do have a mobile hotspot on this phone, so give me a moment. There it is. Oh, now we're connected. Let's try to disconnect and reconnect. Update now. And it looks like it's going pretty quick. It's funny, the data on my phone is like 10 times faster than here at home. Go ahead and turn the key on, engine off. And it looks like that charger is keeping us at a nice voltage. All right, we'll go ahead and start screen recording this so it's a little easier to see. All right, at the top, it looks like it's charging the battery on the scan tool itself from the power on the car. And then over on the right, it actually gives us the battery voltage. And that is pretty nice because my other scan tool that cost way more doesn't show you that on the home screen. You have to click on an icon to look at the battery voltage, and it just gives you like this graph. And it's a little bit annoying, but that is super cool. It just shows you right there at the top. And then down below that, it says smog, and I believe these are your emissions readiness monitors. So basically what that means is if you reset a check engine light, it's gonna take a while as you drive your vehicle for the computer to go through everything and make sure everything is functioning properly. And that's why sometimes if you like reset a check engine light, you're like, oh, it fixed the problem, or oh, I just reset it and it's fine. But then the check engine light comes back. That's just because the emissions monitors take a little bit to kind of read everything, make sure everything's good. This is also important when you go get an emissions test. Here in Colorado, some places have emissions testing, the more populated areas like in the Front Range, parts in the mountains and like out east don't have emissions testing. It's not as bad here as it is in Karen, California, but it is getting worse all the time. But say you just reset a check engine light right before you get an emissions test, it would fail if the emissions monitors are not all ready. So let's go ahead and click on that up top. So pretty much green with the check marks means it's ready to go. And I believe the gray means this vehicle just doesn't have whatever it is, like an air pump. The 4Runner doesn't have an EGR system, which is why the NOx is just like naturally high when they put it on the rollers at the emission test place. But anyways, so let's just go back, and it also has an icon down here that says onboard monitor. So click on that. So that just gives you like kind of very technical information on the monitors. Real quick story, a long time ago, my parents had this Infiniti and it got totaled in an accident, and they said if I fix it, I could just have it. And so I just fixed the suspension, and the driver door had this huge dent, and it had a check engine light. And it was for like a NOx sensor or something. But back in the day, my dad had like a really old school scan tool that just had a small little black and white screen. And back then I would just take it with me when it was time to go get it emissions tested. And while I was waiting in line, I would plug it in and just reset the check engine light because it took a little bit of time for it to come back on. And at that time, they didn't check the emissions readiness monitors. They just made sure it didn't have a check engine light. And then I think they still put it on the rollers and everything, but it passed just fine. However, nowadays, if you just reset the check engine light and the readiness monitors are not set, it will fail an emissions test. It is a pretty nice little feature to have. So say you're like fixing a check engine light right before it needs to be emissions tested, you can drive around, make sure they're all set properly before you go get it done so you don't waste a bunch of time. Okay, below the smog section on the top, we have Diagnostics, and this is all the stuff you pay extra for, like $40 or so. And I'm gonna use that on the BMW next, but for the 4Runner, I'm just gonna show you everything that the scan tool comes with before you pay to upgrade it. So we can go to code and freeze frame data, and let's go ahead and read codes. It's got a bunch of different manufacturers here that you can click on, and I think that's part of the extra $40 upgrade. And those would probably give you more codes and everything, but I think if you don't pay for it, you would just have basically generic. So we'll click on there. And on this 4Runner, we have 2 engine codes, and you can see the status. Both of them are current. Sometimes if it's not quite sure, it'll be a pending code, but when it becomes current, that's when it sets your check engine light. So we have a P0100, mass or volume airflow, a circuit, and intake air temperature, 1 circuit bank 1. We'll go ahead and press the P0100 code, and it basically just types it into Google so you can get more information on that specific code. It definitely saves a little bit of time so you don't have to get your phone out and type it in separately. However, you do have to have a internet connection. Here it just says the PCM perceives a problem with the mass airflow sensor or circuit. Down here it has all of the information, like what does it mean, what are the possible causes, what are the common symptoms, how to diagnose. So pretty useful stuff. Not sure what website this is, but it looks pretty cool. Possible causes are failed or dirty mass airflow sensor, the circuit issue, like if you have damaged wires or poor connection, like sometimes rodents will get in your vehicle and chew up wires. So it may not actually be the component itself, it could be the wiring. And that's why diagnostic skills are so important. So you don't just run out and buy a new mass airflow sensor and it doesn't fix your issue. Sometimes also the connectors will have like corrosion in them if the weather sealing fails. But anyways, we can go back and you can just check out all your codes that way. It's pretty cool. And we'll just go back to the home page. And obviously for this test, I just had the mass airflow sensor disconnected. So I'll plug it back in. Okay, so now that we fixed the problem, we can go ahead and delete the codes. So go to erase, and it asked if you want to clear them. Make sure the key is on, engine off. We'll hit yes. And it takes a little bit, about 10 seconds later, the DTCs have been cleared. Looks like you can send some feedback if you have issues, so hopefully they'll be able to update something. And let's just confirm the code has been cleared. No fault codes. Oh, and I almost forgot we have freeze frame data. I should have looked at that. Obviously we don't have any codes right now, but basically when it sets a check engine light, it'll save all of the raw data so you can look at it later on. This is super helpful, especially if you have like a wing condition code. You can just look at your fuel trims and your engine speed and engine load. Makes things really easy. And I do have one of those dongles that connects to an app on my phone, and I found that is one thing it doesn't have is freeze frame data. So this is a little weird. It shows the onboard monitors are still all green, but let's go ahead and take the battery charger off and start the engine. And you can start the engine with this connected. Hold on, I'm gonna disconnect it and reconnect it and see if anything changes. Takes a little bit. And so yeah, we just have to disconnect it and reconnect it to have it recheck the emissions monitors. And as you can see, the CAT, EVAP, oxygen sensors, and HRT. I don't know what HRT is. Heart rate trainer. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, next, let's go to a live stream data. This is a pretty helpful tool. And at the top, it just kind of changes the way they're listed. It just makes them bigger or smaller, it seems like. Pretty cool. It gives you the number of DTCs stored in this ECU, throttle position, mass airflow, calculated load value, engine coolant temperature, whole lot of good stuff. I'm not going to go over all of the data. Looks like there's a button to save sample. Kind of just explains what it does. And it looks like when you hit save, you can rename it to whatever you like. But now we'll hit more. Gives us an option to compare sample, combine, report, and record. We'll hit compare sample. That is actually pretty cool. It records like the minimum and the maximum amount while you're recording as a before. And then say you like fix something and you want to compare it to after you supposedly fix it and see if there's any change. You can have the before right there next to the new stuff. That is actually really cool. My other scan tool I paid a lot more money for, I don't think had that feature. Before we go back to the more section, let's just try clicking on one of the data sets. So we'll do engine RPM. It brings up a quick graph that you can check out. That is pretty cool. Go ahead and rev up the engine a little bit. I'm gonna turn the heat on. It is pretty cold outside, but that is pretty cool. That just brings up a quick little graph we can check out. Anyways, let's go back to more. And it looks like we can combine. So let's say we have a check engine light and a system to lean fault. When we read the codes, we're gonna wanna see what our fuel trims are doing. So we'll click on calculated load value, engine RPM, long-term fuel trim, bank 1, and we'll do short-term fuel trim, bank 1. And I'm not exactly sure why there's a separate value for bank 1, sensor 1, but we'll just use the first one. Once we click on them, I guess, oh, we go to more and then combine. And check that out, it puts them all on one graph. So that's pretty cool. It shows you the graph with all the values, and they're color coded. And below that, it shows you what each color represents, and also the current value. So one thing to be aware of, there's a range on the sides of the graph for each value, and those are color coded as well. And the range will actually change depending on where the value goes sometimes. So, and it can be a little bit confusing if you have two banks on a vehicle and you're looking at fuel trims for both of those banks. One range might go a little different. So on the graph, it'll look like they're different, but they're actually the same if you match them up with the actual numbers. So it can be a little confusing. You really have to like look into it so you know what's going on. But it's kind of weird how the blue RPM values over on the side there just keep like changing like crazy. I don't exactly know what's going on, but if you look at the RPM value down below, it kind of goes from just a whole number to a decimal number, so maybe that's why. Seems like something they could probably fix, but everything else is staying pretty steady. You can see the short-term fuel trim, bank 1, which is the orange. It goes up and down like that, and that's completely normal because the computer will go just slightly rich, slightly lean, slightly rich, slightly lean. I'm not going to go too much into that right now, but it just basically keeps the catalytic converter working properly when it commands it. A little bit rich, a little bit lean, but that's completely normal. So let's take a look at the long-term fuel trim, which is the green. You can see it's down below on the graph, and we're about at -3%. That's like perfectly fine. And basically it's just taking away a little bit of fuel, and 3 is like no problem at all. You're only going to be concerned if it's negative or positive, like above 12 or so. Usually after that, it's a little bit cause for concern. Sometimes the check engine light won't even turn on until it gets, you know, about 20. But I'll go ahead and rev it up. And we can see our long-term fuel trim went about to 0, which is just great. And we can hit report, see if that comes up with anything. That's kind of cool. It gives you all of your data, and you can send that to your email or make a PDF. Anyways, let's go ahead and go back, and you can always change what you want to see on the graph at one time. So that is pretty cool, but I do like having, you know, just the single value graph you can click on really quick. See how the data set over on the side changed? Yeah, and you can see when we give it some revs, it goes up to about 1.5 or so, which is perfectly fine. But anyways, let's go to more, and it's got a report just like before. Go back to more. We'll hit save sample again, then we can hit stop, and then we can save it. And it's nice having a keyboard. We'll just call it test. Compare sample, and there it is, test. So it's a little bit different data over on the side, but that's pretty cool. We can save a sample of what things are doing before and then compare them to what we're seeing later on. I still think that's pretty sweet. But anyways, that seems to be mostly everything here. We'll go ahead and go back, and it looks like we have an O2 sensor test. Click on that, see what that does, and it gives us all the information on our O2 sensor test. It says everything's okay. It'd definitely be pretty interesting to dig into that and learn more. And that is what I love so much about YouTube. You can learn so much on here. Next, we'll go to other OBD diagnostic stuff. We have an evap system test. Click on that, and it says unavailable on this vehicle. Interesting. So I guess we can't do it on this 4Runner. It would be pretty interesting to look into that more as well. And we also have DTC lookup. Oh, that's cool. It has PCBU all ready to go instead of just like a regular keyboard. P0100. Okay, tells you what the code means, all that stuff. And it looks like down below, you can look it up on Google. Pretty much brings you to that website. And then it's just got version info. Does not support this function. Okay. This 4Runner is a bit older, 99, and I'm not 100% sure if the evap test and the version info has something to do with the vehicle, it's just being old, or if it has something to do with the scan tool itself. Not 100% sure, but we'll have to check it out on the BMW. But anyways, down here we have report, and it looks like it saves it under a date. Say if you forgot one of the codes that you have, you can always come back and look it back up. And then we have the expand. That's where you buy all the other stuff. And all of that is going to be up here under diagnose. But we're going to look into that on the BMW. Next, we'll just check out the settings. At the top, it has our serial number. And below that, it tells you all the modules that are supported: ABS, SRS, ECM, and TCM. We got feedback, and that's where we can tell them about issues that we've had so that hopefully they can fix it. And this thing does need updates every so often. I know just about over a month, there's probably like 9 brands that need it to be updated. So it looks like they're always, updating stuff and making things better, especially because there's newer vehicles always coming out and there's always stuff they're gonna have to update. But beside that, we have repair info. I think this is basically the manual for this thing. And we got coverage list, check that out. So it's got all of the brands, and I guess we can look them up by typing into the keyboard. Let's see, BMW. So I guess you're able to look up specific things that this scan tool will support for certain vehicles with certain systems. We'll hit learning, special function playback learning, tells you what it is. It's really nothing here, which is interesting. And it's got video. So let's click on coverage, and I think it just shows you how to use the device. And then it has an actual instruction manual. So it brings up a quick start manual, shows you and describes how to use it in a written and picture format, shows you how to update all the brands. So that's pretty cool. The manual and a lot of information on how to use it is all built in. And then down here in the settings, we have screenshots on, so that way you can take a picture of the screen. Let's turn that off. And then we got photo album. I'm assuming that's where your screenshots would appear. Next, we have screen floating window, and that basically takes the screen capture button and the screen record button away. I'm recording the screen right now, so I'm gonna leave that on. Then we have automatically send reports, and it asks you to input an email, so it can send you the email of all your reports. I'm gonna leave that off. I can always send a report manually. That's not a problem for me. And below that, we have the report receiving email, the same thing. Screen record, this is where all the saved screen recorded videos go. I do like having the screen record feature. Makes it easier to do videos like this, so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. A lot easier than me trying to point a camera at the screen, and it just looks all glary and stuff. Then we have the Wi-Fi menu, brightness. I don't know if this will show up on the screen record, but it basically turns the brightness up and down. Then it's got the unit of measure, metric and imperial. I live in the United States. I wish we went back to metric long ago. Every time I need to make like fine measurements with imperial, it's such a pain. I do not like fractions. Then below that, you can select your language, and then time zone, and then firmware fix. If you have communication problems, click the firmware repair. Please keep the device connected to the vehicle. I guess you could try that if you have issues. And then clear data. Yeah, I guess you can do like a factory reset, clear all the different stuff. Could be useful down the road. It's got the sleep time. Just set it to 1 minute, it's fine. File manager, and I noticed all my screen records go to the internal storage, and I couldn't figure out a way to have them go directly to the memory card, because I did insert a little micro SD in here, and I couldn't find a way to do that. However, you can manually move them over. You just basically cut and then paste. Looks like the home button is not working, so I'll just click the button on here. Then below that, we have customer service, and it looks like we can get a live chat with someone who knows how to use this thing. Then we have help. This looks like specific stuff for the Android device itself. And then below that, we have a browser. I don't think I would ever need that, but it is pretty nice how you can have it automatically look a code up for you online. And then we have about, just all the you know, information you probably don't need to know. But anyways, that's pretty much everything in settings, and I think we're done with the 4Runner. Okay, now let's check out the BMW. And it looks like we have an airbag light. The restraint system's malfunction. We also have it connected to the supply charge. Go ahead and plug it in. And like before, we'll turn key on, engine off, hit start. So like last time, it says the eOBD2 is not downloaded or the version is too low. But I thought we already updated it. Unless it's using a different OBD2 protocol, but I'm not sure why it wouldn't all be updated. Download failed. So it's connected to internet. Hold on, let me disconnect it and reconnect it again. Oh, there it goes, finally. Install failed. Okay, that time it seemed to work. So let me just unplug it, plug it back in one more time. And it looks like it's updated, but again, I'm not exactly sure why it's asking us to do that again, or why it can't just update everything on the regular update screen. See, it's got all the different manufacturers, but I guess we need to update these really quick. Okay, it finished downloading and installing. Not that we had to update it because it was like not even BMW brand that needed to be updated. But anyways, let's go ahead and test out the upgradable content. And as you can see, we're only at 11.6 volts, even with that 6 amp supply charge, because these BMWs are super power hungry when you turn the key on, engine off. Like at work, I think we have like 100 amp chargers, and you can really tell it's pulling a lot of amps. And we even have pretty much all of the accessories off, but at least it'll help a little bit. Anyways, you can see all of the emissions monitors are good to go, but let's go ahead and go to diagnose. Let's try the auto search feature up at the top. Let's see if it works. And it's supposed to scan the VIN. Looks like the VIN scan didn't work. And it seems to be the same way with my other launch code reader. It doesn't really do a good job at scanning the VIN. I don't know if that's more of a feature for like newer cars. This is a 2007. I would expect my 4Runner being a 99 wouldn't work, but I would think this one would work, but I guess not. I guess you can enter it manually, but here, let's try it one more time just to see. It is plugged in all the way. Nope, didn't work. And let's see if we are connected to Wi-Fi. Also, this touchscreen isn't the most responsive one. It's like an older Android phone, basically. But I mean, what do you expect for how cheap this thing is? It gets the job done, though. It kicked me out of my Wi-Fi. It looks like we can manually enter the VIN, but we could also just manually enter the vehicle information. So we'll just go to BMW, click on that. It says we could automatically search or manually select. Let's just try automatically search. So that's a little weird. It comes up with the VIN number. However, it didn't work for the automatic VIN. And my other code reader is pretty much the same way. It doesn't work with the automatic VIN search, but it's got the mileage on there. E60, 5 Series, 525i, automatic. Looks like everything came up correctly. N52, right engine. We'll just click next. To ensure the accuracy of the test results, do the following. Turn off the ignition switch, wait 10 seconds. Turn on the ignition switch. 1. Turn it back on, hit OK. Reading vehicle data, please wait. And it gives us a health report and system something. The screen recorder is kind of in the way of that. But let's just start with the health report, see what comes up. Scanning system. That is interesting. So it actually gives us a few more modules than I thought. It comes up with the ARS, which is the dynamic drive. This thing actually has hydraulic sway bars and dynamic steering, so it can like change the steering ratio. at any given time. It's kind of interesting, but it's more stuff to break. Then we have the SRS module, which is the airbags. Obviously we have a fault in there because I created it. And then we got ECM, transmission module, ABS, and SZL, which is the steering column module. But let's see what's wrong with the ARS. It just has the information of the module. Click continue. I guess we can erase fault codes. We got module information. I think that's just what we had. Yeah, same thing that was there before. We can read the fault code, see what fault it is. ARS pre-drive check. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but let's click on the search feature, see if anything comes up. So it pretty much just looks up the fault online. I don't think it's an issue, and it's not really causing any warning lights or issues in the vehicle, so we'll just ignore that one. But we can read the data stream, which is pretty cool. But we'll look more into this in just a little bit. But let's just try to clear the fault code. See if it goes away. And it looks like it did. But obviously the problem that we have is in the SRS module. So we'll just go into there. Gives you the info. And we'll read the fault codes. Seatbelt, catch, contact, and the belt tensioner, driver, and the active head restraint, driver. And I know what's wrong because I created the problem. So let's go ahead and turn the car off. And down here under the seat, we can see it's just not plugged in. So I'll go ahead and plug that guy in. And usually when you mess with airbag stuff, you wanna disconnect the battery and wait like 20 minutes or so. But it's just the seatbelt, tensioner, and head restraint. However, mess with the airbag stuff at your own risk. Okay, let's turn the key on engine off, and we'll go back and clear the fault code. It says it was completed, and the airbag light is gone. So we can go back, and we see that there's no more faults in the system. And it also has clear DTCs at the bottom, so we can clear everything. So we'll go back and then click on system. And click on one. And it basically, so both of these, the health report and the system scan, are basically the same thing. However, the health report just kind of shows you if there are any faults in the modules. So you don't have to like click on each one and then read the faults. Like if you go to system scan, it just shows you what modules it's equipped with. One thing I will mention is that it doesn't have that top bar with the Wi-Fi and the voltage of the vehicle when we're in the brand specific area. We can bring down that quick menu, but there's no way to see the voltage. So I kind of wish it kept that up there. But anyways, we'll just turn it off and remove the charger, and then we'll start the engine up. Now let's check out some of the data we can get, and we'll go into system. Let's try the SCL, which is the steering column, and we'll read data stream. Steering column adjustment, steering angle sensor, wiper switch. Dang, it's got a lot of stuff in here. Let's click on the steering angle sensor. Let's just check mark all of it, hit OK. It says the steering angle is adjusted, and it's right about in the center, 0. Oh, there we go. It's pretty close to the center. That way we can see if the steering angle is working properly. When we click on them, oh, it comes up with a graph for some of the stuff, like for the degrees. So let's hit more. And it's basically like the same stuff we already did on the 4Runner, where you can combine stuff and check the graph. And obviously this thing doesn't have any like special functions, so you can't actually adjust the steering angle, and it doesn't have bidirectional control, so you can't send commands, but it just gives you all of the data. But that is pretty handy to have all of that stuff if you're trying to diagnose something. Check out wiper switch, click all of them. Hold it down, it says pressed, let go, not pressed. But anyways, we'll go out of that. We'll go into the ECM. So in here, we should be able to get a lot more stuff than we could with just OBD2. It's cool, it's got the Vanos, Valvetronic. Gives us the eccentric shaft angles. motor operating value, check all of this stuff. Oh, there's our fuel trims right there. Transmission, TCM, performance variables, a whole lot of stuff in here. Oil temperature, that's kind of useful. On these BMWs, when you're checking or filling, the level of the transmission needs to be at a certain temperature. And then you open the fill plug and it's supposed to run out just a little bit, and that's how you know that it's full. Oh, that's cool. We have wheel speed sensors. You can look at the solenoid valves. It can tell you when your converter is locked up, your actual gear, first gear. Let's see if we can put it in second. Oh, there it goes. Definitely would be useful if you're trying to diagnose some transmission problems. There's definitely a lot to learn. It's extra 40 bucks and you get all of that extra information, and you can read all your fault codes in a lot of different modules. That's obviously not all of the modules in this BMW. You'd have to get a lot more expensive scan tool to be able to read everything, but for the price, that is pretty sweet. One thing I will mention, I know for a fact that my van, I will not be able to access the ABS module through the onboard diagnostic port. It has nothing to do with this scan tool, which is a little bit unfortunate because I have an intermittent ABS light on the van. However, I think I know what it is because there's like a corroded connector, but unfortunately I can't read the faults to see exactly what's going on there. And the only scan tools that can connect to that specific module is like the OEM Ford scan tool, and I think there's like only one snap-on tool that I think you can get an adapter and connect to it. But most vehicles, especially newer ones like this, you're gonna be able to get into that ABS module and other modules as well. But anyways, we'll just go back. You can just exit out of the whole thing, which is pretty useful. So that's a bit strange. It says your eOBD2 is not downloaded or the version is too low. Please upgrade it first. Like, we just did that, so that seems to be a bug in the scan tool, which is kind of annoying. Okay, so I had it update again, and I unplugged it, plugged it back in, finally got it to work. It comes up with all the smog data again. So it is a little bit buggy, but anyways, let's go to other and try the evap system test on the BMW. See what happens. And it says unavailable on this vehicle as well. But anyways, let's go ahead and start it up again. I just want to make sure we can still get into OBD2 on the BMW. And yep, it's got everything here. But anyways, guys, I think we're pretty much done checking everything. So guys, all in all, this is a pretty sweet little scan tool. It definitely does everything that my launch scan tool does. However, even after you upgrade it, it's still about $50, $60, $70 cheaper than I paid for the launch one. And I actually like a lot of things better with this one. I do like how it tells you the car's battery voltage right there at the top, along with everything else. My launch scan tool doesn't do that. And also I like the graphs in the data stream a lot better than my launch scan tool. I think it's just a little bit easier to read the graphs, and I like how you can click on each data set and just see a quick graph of just that one. I also like the screen recording feature. I don't think my launch has a screen recorder. You can only do screenshots with it. However, it's super nice to have that screen recorder when you do videos like this. So it's a lot easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. However, the button for it kind of gets in the way a little bit sometimes, but it's not a huge deal. However, you can take the button off if you don't need it. You just swipe down and turn off screen recording. Another thing is that the touchscreen is not exactly the most responsive. It's not like these modern iPhones that we have. It's more kind of on par with like an old school Android phone, but it gets the job done. I'm actually pretty impressed that it has a touchscreen and it's Android based at this price range. However, obviously we have some obvious bugs. The biggest one is when we plugged it in, it says it needed to update the OBD2 specific software, and that's kind of weird, and it has done it 3 times. One on the 4Runner, first time I plugged it in the BMW, and then it did it again on the BMW. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Hopefully it doesn't do that every time I want to plug it into a new vehicle. Maybe it's just like trying to upgrade specific protocols for OBD2, because I know there are quite a few of them. However, I wish you could just update that with all of the brand specific stuff. However, it didn't seem like there was a way to do that. It waits until you plug it into a vehicle, which is kind of annoying, especially if you don't have an internet connection. Fortunately, I can use the hotspot on my phone, and it did disconnect from my phone a few times, but I think that's because we're so close to the Wi-Fi on the house. My phone is like trying to connect to that sometimes because we're like right on the edge. It does some weird stuff like that in this area specifically. But also, unfortunately, the automatic VIN search doesn't seem to exactly work. However, it doesn't really work very well on my launch scan tool either. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. And it was kind of weird once we go into the brand, which was BMW, and automatically searched in there. It was able to pull up the VIN, so I'm not sure why it's not working. And also another bug was with the combination graph. When we had the RPM, the data set on the side was just like going crazy and didn't even really make sense, but it was only for RPM, and everything else seemed to be working fine. But anyways, guys, other than those few little bugs, it seems to be an awesome little scan tool for the price. I don't think you can really find anything else that cheap that does everything that this can do. I don't know, it might be a pro or a con to some people that it doesn't come with the upgraded manufacturer specific stuff and you have to pay extra for it, but it's kind of cool. You can just get it, you know, 40, 50 bucks to begin with, use it for like OBD2, and you can always upgrade it later on. But even with the bugs, we're pretty much able to do everything we need it to do. But anyways, guys, I'm just gonna keep using the scan tool, and unfortunately I don't really have anything to diagnose right now, but when I do, I will use this one in the next diagnostic video. I do have a diagnostic video coming for the van that had a lean condition fault, but I did use my launch scan tool for that one, and I was able to figure out what was going on, and we did fix the problem, but that video will be coming later on. But anyways, guys, I'll let you know if I have any more issues or if they fix some of the problems with it. But thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you later. Peace out.